white elephant in the room. Yeshua is not one to pretend that it's not there. He's going to talk about it. Hi, this is Barry Phillips with 10 Minute Torah, day number 2, a Torah portion, Shemini, again meaning eighth, referencing the 8th day. This is the day of inauguration of Aaron, his sons, and the Levites. This is the day that they actually take over the priesthood and begin to perform Levitical duties in the tabernacle. In the book of Vayikra, Leviticus chapter number 9, let's read verse number 1 and 2. And on the 8th day it came to be that Moshe called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel, and he said to Aaron, take for yourself a young bull as a sin offering. In verse number 3 it says, and speak to the children of Israel, saying, take a male goat as a sin offering. And that's just the first part of those 2 verses. What is Yah doing here? He is addressing the elephant in the room. For whatever part that Aaron felt guilt concerning the gold calf, whatever lingering awkwardness that he discerned about himself in Yah's presence pertaining to that, very well may have been a clearing for him by taking a young bull to offer for himself. For my participation in that hideous act of idolatry, I bring now that which is like what I created, and I present it and ask for a sin atonement for me. Well, what about the ram concerning the children of Israel? It goes back some generations to that of Yaakov's sons, where they took a goat, perhaps a male goat, slew it, and covered the coat of Joseph. Excuse me, I'll get that out in a second. Took Joseph's multicolored striped coat and dipped it in that male goat blood and presented it to Yaakov and deceived him pertaining to the existence of his son, convincing Yaakov that Joseph was dead. For that problem and the resulting inter-sibling rivalries that developed, that Israel was still struggling with at that time, and dare I say, still struggles with to this day, the goat was to atone for perhaps that sin, a clearing of themselves, a getting of the awkwardness of relationship around them away. Have you ever walked into a room and suddenly people look up, see it's you, and the conversation stops, and there's that weird look on their face, and you realize, very likely, I've just been the subject of conversation. And there is this awkwardness that comes into the room and these forced smiles on people's faces. It's not a very fun place to be. You want to address it. You want to say, okay, what's going on? And what are we discussing here? Maybe I can help clear up something for you. But more often than not, we swallow hard and pretend we didn't notice, but then we are awkward around those people. Yah does not enjoy that experience, and neither should we. Those hidden things, those things that we would like to pretend don't exist, have never existed, and still will not exist in the future. Those issues, skeletons in your closet, dirt on the rug, ever how you want to call it, it's socially awkward, it's spiritually awkward. It is a hindrance to your prayer lives, and it is a means of stunting, if you will, your spiritual growth and maturity. Yeshua, after he had risen from the dead, he dealt handily with Kepha, Simon Peter. This is the man that says, I will never be offended with you. And even if it's necessary for me to die with you, I would not deny you. And all the other disciples, along with Shimon Kepha, also said the same thing. Yeshua looked at him and said, before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times. Now, there is a translational error that is going on there. Rabbis teach us that cocks and chickens and hens, etc., they were not allowed like that in Jerusalem. There is a translational error between Hebrew and Aramaic and Greek. The Greek translators, and yes, I said translators of the text in Matthew, or actually in Yochanan, they turn some words around, and instead of using the more rightly applied word of town crier, this is the priest that would have stood just prior to sunrise and issued the call for the priest to begin to come and prepare themselves for the day's offerings at the tabernacle or at the temple in that day. And so before that priest would stand up and announce the time for the return to the house of Elohim, you will deny me 3 times. It wasn't a rooster crowing. It was a man calling out. And so this Hebrew word gaver, it can be translated as rooster, but more often than not, it's referencing the temple crier with the sounding of a trumpet. So Kepha, having realized that Yeshua was raised from the dead and he's alive, that means he remembers the words that I said. He knows that I denied him. He knows I'm broken about it, but it's awkward. And what's it going to be like? And how am I going to face him? Kepha decided, I'm going fishing, and the rest of them went with him. Kepha went fishing to try to cover up his misery. He had been called out of fishing for fish and been called now to fishing for men. Busyness, even busyness of ministry, at times is a blanket that we try to throw over our awkward sins. And so we assume, well, if I sing a lot, dance a lot, preach a lot, pray a lot, if I read the Bible a lot, if I do a lot of good deeds, it'll just cover it up. It doesn't. Because even in the doing of what is right, there is still the lingering of what is wrong. Let me say that again. Even in the doing of what is right, there is the lingering of what is wrong. And you know it, and Yah knows it. I know it, and Yah knows it. Our busyness is not enough. And so Yeshua aids the weary fisherman who caught nothing, and he says, throw the net on the other side. And they do so, and there is this enormous catch of fish. They're talking among themselves to the one that's called from the shore. He's saying, come, dine, come eat with me, and bring some of that which you have caught. And they're saying, it's the master. And Kepha knows that it's the master, and he's upset. Somebody, Kepha in particular, pulled the net to the shore, and while there was an opportunity to feast with Yeshua at a campfire on the beach, somebody took the time to count the fish, 153 of them. Again, counting, busyness. I have an opportunity to dine with him, to gaze upon his resurrected face. And I'll be right there, but right now I'm going to count these fish. Couple of thoughts here. Ha b'nei Elohim is the phrase in Hebrew that numerically equals 153. Ha Pesach, Passover, the Passover, also equals 153. Think on those things and see how they may apply. But let's lay down our busyness and let's find his face. More tomorrow, and until then, shalom.